Why does Bitcoin take breathers along the way to digest different price levels? Like right now, where we've been sort of stuck at 118,000 for what feels like a week or two. The answer is because the nature of human behavior is such that when you reach new price levels, people have to get used to that price level. And the reason is people sell when they're in a certain amount of profit. So James Check, my favorite Bitcoin analyst, walks through a lot of these price levels and why they are that way. So think about it like a kid in a candy store. So how long are you going to have to spend in the candy store? The question is, well, how much money does the kid have to shop for candy? And if a kid is used to having $10 in their savings and they've had $10 for a long time, and then suddenly they have $20, well, they're going to want to spend some time in the candy store because the kid is feeling wealthy now. They're used to having $10, now they have $20. Um, Same if they have suddenly $30, so they suddenly have three times as much money as they are used to having, then they're going to want to spend a lot longer in the candy store until they have bought enough candy that they are back down to the $10 or so that they are used to having. Well, Bitcoin and any other investment asset works the same way, that when people are in a certain amount of profit as a percentage, they are inclined to improve the quality of their lives and their families' lives. And you can actually map that all out. So James Check, my favorite Bitcoin analyst, that is one of his specialties. He looks at the Bitcoin price and he says, okay, right now we're at 118,000. The average price that anyone's paid for that Bitcoin is whatever, pick a number. He outlines a lot of that in his research. And for example, right now, sitting at 118,000, he says somewhere between 132,000 and, so we're going to take a breather where we are for some period of time. Could be days, could be weeks, could be, nobody knows. There could be a dip along the way before we're sort of back on track. No track, nobody knows. For example, we took a dip when the U.S. bombed Iran because everybody freaked out, even though there's no reason to sell Bitcoin when somebody bombs somebody. But in fact, I would buy Bitcoin because it means the world's more unstable. But people freak out, but there could be a dip along the way. But according to James Check, what is likely to happen is, look, at some point we will break above this $118,000 that we are at, and then he thinks sort of the next breathing zone, the next time it's going to take to digest everything is between 132 and 140,000. And again, that's because he's looking at all of the Bitcoin that is currently owned. He doesn't know who owned it, but he can tell the last time that that Bitcoin transacted on the Bitcoin blockchain, and he can tell how much profit Bitcoin is in. So the average Bitcoin is in, I'll pick a number, 150% profit. And he knows that, let's call it 175% profit, people just find it irresistible to improve the lives of themselves and their family. It just is. And you can see that through the entire history of Bitcoin. When people get a certain percent on their investment, they're inclined to improve their lives of them and their families. And so you got to take time for the people who are in that much profit to do that. And of course, it's not universal. I mean, I'm in, I don't know, triple, quadruple profit on average to the price I've paid for Bitcoin. Um, there's nothing I want to buy right now. So it's not, it doesn't mean when somebody's in a lot of profit that they're automatically going to spend some of their Bitcoin improving their lives or their family's lives. It just means statistically it's more likely. So, for example, statistically, it is quite likely that somewhere between 132,000 and 140,000, enough people will be in enough profit in Bitcoin that we're likely to spend a decent amount of time somewhere in that range waiting for everybody who wants to improve their lives and the lives of their family to spend whatever Bitcoin they were planning on spending, and waiting for the market adoption of Bitcoin to absorb that newly spent Bitcoin until the people who are at that level are done spending money, spending Bitcoin. The same thing happened at, let's call it $108,000. Again, it bounced around a good bit, but on average, it just seemed to be stuck for a while until boom, one day, all the people that wanted to spend at that level suddenly were done spending, and we rocketed up to 123, and then came back down to 118, and now we've been chilling at 108, 118, around 118 for a while. Okay, so what happens at higher levels? Well, according to James Check, once we get north of between 160 and $165,000, things are getting pretty steamy. As in, now the average holder is in a lot of profit, and a lot more profit than they normally are willing to sit on without spending some. And so, according to him, once you get up in that level, if you get there really fast, you might end up with a little price correction to get as some of those spenders they spend, and the market can't quite absorb enough of that Bitcoin, to keep up. Now, always eventually the market adoption of Bitcoin, since, in the ballpark of 5% of the world owns any Bitcoin and 95% doesn't, that means as that adoption grows over time, they absorb that Bitcoin from people who are spending it, and the price eventually goes up. In the long term, once Bitcoin is adopted 100% by everybody in the world, then you won't get these ups and downs like that. Everybody who's spending Bitcoin will be offset by somebody who is saving Bitcoin. And the spenders and the savers will just cancel each other out on a daily basis because the only profit in Bitcoin will be everyone's Bitcoin going up by between 3% and 5% per year, which is the rate of human productivity growth. We get better at making stuff and doing stuff 3% to 5% per year. And so, because Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million, the average Bitcoin will increase in purchasing power by 3% to 5%, even when it's fully adopted worldwide. But when that happens, the spenders and the savers will just offset each other. And on an average day, hundreds of billions of dollars of Bitcoin will change hands, but the price won't really move because the spenders and savers on average will cancel each other out. But in this case, we're so early in the adoption cycle of Bitcoin that they don't always cancel each other out. And so you get these price movements. So according to James Jack, at some point, the people who are willing to sell Bitcoin at 118,000 will run out, and they will run out just like the people at 105 or 108,000 ran out. And then the price will, launch to a new higher level, in his opinion, probably between 132 and 140. And then we'll spend a while digesting that so that all the people who are suddenly in a lot of profit, have time to spend whatever they want to spend, have time to improve the lives of them and their families, and we'll hang out between 132 and 140. Again, these are guesses. There's no guarantee it'll be in that range, but this is generally statistically how that would work. And we'll hang out in that range for some series of weeks or months. And in that range between 132 and 140, everybody's going to be all annoyed. And why is Bitcoin's price not moving? And why do we have to sit here? And why is it going nowhere? And why is it not exciting anymore? And it's just the fact that a bunch of people earn a lot more profit at 132 to 140 than they are at 118. And some of those people are going to want to spend their Bitcoin. And we're going to have to wait for the kid at the candy store to finish buying all the candy because they're feeling rich, because they're used to having $10 and now they got $20 or now they got $30, and that money's burning a hole in their pocket and they want to improve the lives of them and their families. Or in the case of the kid in the candy store, they want to buy candy. And we're all going to have to wait. And the faster we go to 140,000, the longer we're going to have to wait for the kids in the candy store to spend whatever they want to get done spending. And if overnight we catapult to 165,000, one second, if we catapult to 165,000 or 180,000 overnight, then guess what? There's probably going to be a pullback because a bunch of people who were planning on spending some Bitcoin when it got higher to buy a new car, put an add-on on the house, go on a nice vacation, bunch of those people are going to decide to do it at the same time if we catapult higher really fast, and we'll get a pullback in price. We might shoot up to $180,000 and then fall back to $145,000. And why is that? Well, it's because we catapulted higher fast enough that there was a bunch of people that were planning on spending some Bitcoin that didn't get a chance. And now there's a bunch of kids in candy stores that want to go back and spend some time in the candy store because we passed the candy store that they wanted to spend time at. Now we got to go back and visit it because, that's where they want to be. They want to spend a little Bitcoin. Eventually, always, the market adoption of Bitcoin by the 95% of the world that doesn't own any Bitcoin catches up. It absorbs the supply that's being spent by these people who are spending. And eventually, because Bitcoin is finite, the demand always outstrips the supply over time. Sometimes it takes a while, and the price eventually always goes up. So even in major price corrections like in 2022, which was caused by a bunch of crypto stupidity blowing up and Sam Bankman-Fried, that resulted in a lot of people panicking and freaking out and selling Bitcoin, and the price, decline for like a year in a row. But eventually, the adoption of Bitcoin outstripped that supply of panic sellers, and the price marched higher and then higher and higher and higher until record highs. And now it's, you know, twice as high as it ever was in 2022. At the highest point in 22 and six times as high as it ever was at the lowest price in 2022. Because again, eventually the demand always outstrips the supply. But like a pig in a python, the marketplace has to digest higher prices because there are people that want to spend Bitcoin at those higher prices. And one day that will be you. One day your Bitcoin will be in so much profit that you will be going on a nice vacation. You will be buying a new house, a new car, building an ad on your house, whatever it is you do when you're feeling wealthy. And other people who are new to Bitcoin will be annoyed that some people somewhere are spending Bitcoin. And you'll think, yeah, but I bought this Bitcoin in 2025 and here we are in 2029 and I've quadrupled my money. And you have every right to spend some of your Bitcoin because you'll be deeply in profit, just like the people are in 2025 that were buying in 2022, 2023, 2024. They're up a lot. And, you know, that's what they do. That's how humans behave, but that's how you will behave, in the long term. So enjoy the ride. It's just the way all markets work. It's not unique to Bitcoin. It's the way all investments work. They all take time to digest new price points. It's just part of the journey. It's part of the process. And if you wait long enough, the price always eventually goes up. Have a great day, everyone.